about a curriculum that I built for SF Arts Education. So I mostly work inside of schools. I also work inside of San Quentin Prison, and I do work with Geo Reentry Center downtown. This residency was with Lawton Middle School, and it was the first time coming out of college that I had full control over building a curriculum for students, which was like the most exciting thing for me. Because I was like, yes, I can finally get kids to talk about politics. Like, yeah, all mine, right? So two main things that were consistent throughout the whole residency were sticky notes. Every day when kids came into the room, I had a sticky note question posted on the piano and a pile of sticky notes and pens for them to respond to that question. Oftentimes, students would then go back and pull a sticky note that wasn't theirs, and then bring that into our large group circle for our check-in opening conversation. They also had composition notebooks to reflect in class when I gave them certain prompts, and also to take home to do writing prompts or reflect on things that we were talking about in class. The first thing that I wanted to do before we started getting our hands dirty with the theatrics, with the political stuff like I wanted to, I really wanted to make sure that everyone had a clear understanding of the community that we were building as a team. I wanted to make sure that compassion and care and respect were like at the forefront of any time we were speaking to each other, when we were being physical with each other, doing activities with each other, making art with each other, and also giving feedback. The first thing I did after establishing that community was split them up into different devising groups, right? And in those groups, I wanted to make sure that there were people who liked writing, people who liked acting, people who liked movement, and people who really liked directing, sort of seeing the end goal vision on stage. And making sure that I had all those different folks a part of the groups. It was really easy once I started giving them assignments to work on with each other to create small scenes. So the question that I love asking kids is, what do you love to talk about that you never get to talk about? And usually some, crazy things come up. Some kid always has to say Fortnite. I don't know, we talk about Fortnite all the time. But the things that my class came up with were politics, relationships, and love. So love for ourselves and also like hate for ourselves, right? A lot of students struggle with mental health issues, just like a lot of adults suffer from mental health issues. And they felt that was something that they did not get to talk about enough. So once I had these groups formed, I gave the students opportunities to devise individually and devise as groups. So individually, they would bring their pieces to the group, read it all as a team, give each other feedback. And if the groups were doing a divisive piece, we would show it on stage and then give each other feedback from there. So I wanted to give them a container, this is an example, something that would get them started but would not limit them to do all of the things that their imagination wants to do, right? So as we started doing this devising process, there were a few themes that came up in our group divisive pieces around politics. Those themes were queer issues, immigration issues, and again, mental health issues, specifically suicide, and students talking about ways to kill themselves in a surprisingly playful manner in Walmart, but nonetheless talking about mental health issues, right? And for the sake of the rest of the rest of my presentation, I want to focus specifically on the immigration scene that my students talked about. Because instead of talking about a Latinx family that was getting deported or getting split apart, they talked about a Chinese family that was getting deported and split apart. Every time that we had something presented, we had basically table readings and group feedbacks where you could talk about things that you appreciate, talk about things that you thought were interesting, things that you wanted to change, things that you wanted to morph, sometimes two pieces that you thought could fit together, and like talking about how we could blend scenes together, but mainly like focusing on that respectful feedback. So we focused on these two main political scenes, a scene about undocumented folks and a scene about queer issues. And someone said, oh, well, if we're talking about undocumented people, isn't it kind of rude that we have like Chinese people playing this role in the scene? And I was like, whoa, this is interesting, right? Because so many people are criminalized and treated in extremely inhumane ways. So one of our class periods we spent discussing these different images from the Holocaust, from the Chinese Exclusion Act, from detention centers that are happening right now, and mass incarceration, right? Talking about how we treat people once they are labeled as criminals, once they are labeled as no longer human. So in the midst of all this heavy political stuff, they were like, come on, Miss V, please, can we do something funny? I just want to write a funny script. So I was like, okay, everyone, like, take time, do 2-page max funny commercial, like whatever you want to write about, right? So at the end of this semester, I had like 2 really intense scripts about queer issues and immigration, and then a bunch of like these funny little commercial things. I'm like, how do I fit this together into a show? So I figured, hey, why don't I just make it about a kid watching TV, flipping through channels, right? So the opening scene is this kid talking to their parent. The parent's like, you better do your homework while I'm at work, blah, 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 whatever the parent leaves. And the first thing the kid does is throw the book and turn on the TV, which is the stage. So they're flipping through all these scenes. And when I cultivated the script, putting all of their mini scenes together, I left blank spots for when that kid would make commentary on what they were watching on the screen. So it also gave the students in the class an opportunity to be like, well, this is the first time in our class that I'm being exposed to like issues of immigration, or talking about mass incarceration, or talking about pronouns. Why aren't my parents talking to me about this? Why am I not learning about this in school? So once our final script was all put together and they got to add their own language to what that kid was saying as they're watching their TV, we went into character development, research on the kinds of issues we were talking about, and scene development. Because I really wanted to make sure that after casting, every single student in the class had a personal connection to the emotions that their character was going through. The mom who was getting deported in the undocumented scene, the kid who was getting misgendered at the queer cafe. Politics is personal, whether we want to admit it or not. Politics is also something that affects kids, arguably even more so than us, right? So I really think it's important, especially in a creative, artistic way, to give kids space to talk about and explore those issues, because politics is always personal. Thank you.
Yeah.